Okay, picture this. You got a major sports league, right? And its biggest star, the one everyone's talking about, just dropped this huge new commercial. Fans went wild. Total sign of massive market power.
Yeah, a real statement piece.
But then, hold on. At the exact same time, you look at the viewership numbers for recent games, the ones without that star, and they are, well, let's just say, alarmingly low.
Wow.
It's this fascinating, almost weird contrast, growth and struggle side by side. So if that hook got you thinking, definitely hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe share this deep dive with someone who loves getting into the weeds of sports business. It really helps keep these chats going.
It's just such a vivid picture, isn't it? You've got the almost singular power of one absolutely transcendent talent, and then that's set against the sort of broader, more complex reality of the whole league's underlying health. And that's exactly the crossroads we're going to dive into today. We're really focusing in on the WNBA, obviously Caitlin Clark, this like undeniable phenomenon, and what these two kind of contradictory numbers actually tell us about the business of sports, fan engagement, and just the tricky art of actually building a league.
Yeah, our mission today is really to pull apart these two stories, the huge individual star rising, and then these league-wide struggles underneath. We're going to use the insights and the data we've looked at, and we want to figure out what it all really means for women's basketball going forward. Not just what's happening, because we see that, but the much bigger question of why it matters, For the fans, for the league execs, everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's unpack the star side first. For anyone who's been following the WNBA, even just a little bit, one of the biggest off-court things has been this question mark over Nike and Caitlin Clark.
Mm-hmm.
And the big news, the buzz, is that Nike finally dropped something specific for her, a player exclusive, a PE. And it wasn't just a quick appearance in an ad.
No, and what's really interesting here is the context, right? This isn't just another endorsement deal tacked onto something else. This is her first proper solo Nike commercial since she joined the WNBA.
Right, her own spot.
Yeah, a dedicated ad launched specifically for her new Kobe 5 Pro Player exclusives. And the timing feels important too. It just dropped June 30th after what, let's be honest, felt like a pretty long wait to a lot of people.
A long wait, yeah. And it's not just any shoe, is it? It's got the Mamba logo. That's a big deal, a nod to Kobe Bryant, who was a huge, huge inspiration for Clark herself.
Massive.
But the question that just exploded online, everywhere you looked on fan forums, social media, was, okay, but is this her signature shoe? Because that feels like what everyone's really waiting for. That's the holy grail, isn't it?
And that raises a really, really important point about the pecking order in the sneaker world. So no, it's not a signature line, not yet.
Yeah.
It's a player exclusive. But the reporting around this, the stuff we've seen, really emphasizes that this is seen as the first real step. I mean, think about it. A signature shoe, that's the ultimate validation, right?
Totally.
It means a long-term, multi-million-dollar commitment, unique designs just for her, a global marketing push. It turns an athlete into an icon. Only a tiny number of athletes ever get one. LeBron, Jordan, Curry.
Right, the absolute top tier.
And even fewer women.
Yeah.
Diana Taurasi has one in the WNBA, which is huge. But a PE, while it's still cool and prestigious, it's more about special colors or maybe small tweaks on a shoe model that already exists.
Okay, so if it is just a PE, why the massive reaction? It really felt like everyone was just desperate for something, any big move from Nike. What does their, perceived delay and now this move tell us about their strategy? Or maybe even about the market's readiness for a woman athlete to really carry a huge signature line like that?
That's such a critical question because the fan noise, the clamoring for this, it wasn't just about Clark herself, amazing as she is. It felt like it represented Nike's commitment, or lack thereof maybe, to the sport, to women's basketball through its biggest star.
Right, it was bigger than just shoes.
Exactly. When fans talk about growing the game, they mean tangible stuff like this. Big marketing spends, dedicated product lines, pushing stars into the mainstream culture. So the delay, yeah, for a lot of fans, it was frustrating. It felt like maybe Nike wasn't quite getting how big this moment was. But the ad itself is clever. That line, "Y'all must have a fever" or something, referencing her team, the Indiana Fever. It almost feels like Nike kind of winking, acknowledging the wait, right? Okay, yeah, we hear you. You've been impatient. Here it is.
Yeah, a bit of self-awareness there.
Totally. And it suggests they are finally ready to put some serious, like, real resources behind her. There are strong rumors flying around about a clothing line, more merchandise coming before the holidays. So this isn't just one shoe drop. It feels like the start of a proper, strategic, long-term brand build.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's where we hit that pivot point, that other side of the coin. Because while Clark is clearly driving this unprecedented individual value, there's this other headline that just jumps out, presenting this really stark, almost opposite reality.
Yeah.
The WNBA's ratings. For the games that don't feature Caitlin Clark, the analysis we're seeing describes them as, frankly, brutal. And it's not just like a small dip we're talking about. It seems like a pretty major concern.
Oof. Yeah, if we connect that to the bigger picture, the numbers really do paint a clear and pretty challenging picture for the league. Like, take some recent games that were supposed to be big deals, right?
Yep.
Aired on NBA TV, featuring teams you'd think would draw big markets, star players.
Like the ones they'd want to showcase.
Exactly. Los Angeles Sparks versus Chicago Sky only pulled in 240,000 viewers. Now, to put that in perspective, I mean, some gamers streaming on Twitch can get numbers like that or even higher pretty regularly.
Wow.
So it's not just about, oh, Clark wasn't playing. It points to maybe a deeper, more systemic challenge in how the rest of the league's competitive games are being packaged or reaching the average sports fan.
And it really does highlight the challenge because it gets worse. Sparks versus Minnesota Lynx Mints. Minnesota was the runner-up last year. They've got great players like Nafisa Collier, even fewer viewers, just 220,000.
Ouch.
But the real shocker, the one that just makes you go, whoa, was the Connecticut Sun versus the Las Vegas Aces. I mean, these are arguably two of the very best teams in the entire league. Perennial contenders.
Absolutely top-tier matchup.
If there's ever going to be a must-see regular season WNBA game, you'd think that would be it, right? A showcase of the highest level of play. And it only got 100,000 viewers. For a nationally televised pro game, that's not just low, it's kind of stunningly low by almost any measure.
It really raises this profound question about scale, and impact within the whole sports media world. Think about this. If you add up the viewers for those three games we just mentioned, the 240K for Sparks Sky, the 220K for Sparks Lynx, and the 100K for Sun Aces.
Okay, carry the one that's 560,000 total.
Right, 550,000 viewers combined. Now here's the kicker, the part that's truly fascinating and maybe a bit humbling for the league office. That entire total, all three games added together, is still less than Caitlin Clark's lowest single game rating on NBA TV this year.
Like, out, really?
Yep. Her quote-unquote worst night, her least watched game on that specific network, still brought in more eyes than those three other games combined. Games featuring established stars and top teams.
Wow.
That's not just like a fluke or a weird stat. That is the definition, the absolute embodiment of transcendent star power and the massive impact she's having right now on the WNBA's viewership numbers.
So, okay, beyond just the raw numbers, what does this really mean for the league? This isn't just, oh, one player's popular. This feels like a single talent directly propping up the average, right? What are the, long-term implications for things like the next collective bargaining agreement, or how much money they can realistically ask for in future TV deals? Because consistent ratings across the board are usually the foundation for those huge contracts, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. This dynamic has potentially huge implications down the line. When networks are negotiating these massive multi-year billion-dollar broadcast deals, what they crave is consistency. Predictable viewership across the schedule, not just massive spikes for one or two players' games.
Right, they need the baseline to be higher.
Exactly. If the ratings fall off a cliff the moment one specific player isn't on the court, that significantly weakens the league's negotiating leverage. It could mean lower bids for the TV rights, which translates directly into less revenue for the league overall.
And less money means less for player salaries, investing in teams.
Less for everything. Player salaries, team facilities, marketing budgets, youth development, just overall investment and growth. It also directly impacts how much attention the sport gets in the wider world. On sports talk shows, in casual conversations. It really forces the league to ask that tough question. How do we convert this incredible initial buzz, this curiosity sparked by a superstar, into genuine, sustained engagement with the entire league, the entire product?
So the WNBA is really at this critical point then, a unique spot.
Definitely a critical juncture. On the one hand, yeah, they've got this bona fide, game-changing superstar in Caitlin Clark, someone who can undeniably drive eyeballs, drive conversation, make people tune in, which is gold in today's attention economy. But then on the other hand, the league is still wrestling with these really fundamental kind of stubborn challenges.
Yeah.
Games without Clark just aren't consistently pulling the numbers they need for like robust long-term health and serious growth.
But aren't they already trying to market other players? I mean, we see profiles and highlights. What are the sources suggesting is like missing from the current strategy? Because you're right, you absolutely cannot build a whole league on one person forever, no matter how amazing she is. That's just not sustainable.
That's such a crucial point. And yes, they are promoting other athletes, definitely more than in the past.
Yeah.
But the analysis we've looked at seems to consistently highlight these gaps. Gaps in overall marketability, in the storytelling around players, and in the ability to consistently hook a broader fan base beyond just Clark's games.
Okay.
So the challenge seems two-pronged. Yes, the league obviously needs that continued pipeline of exciting new talent coming in to keep the on-court product fresh and competitive. But it also, maybe even more urgently, needs to do a much, much better job promoting the incredible talent it already has.
Like Kua. Give me examples.
Well, think about players like Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Alyssa Thomas, Jewel Lloyd. These are MVP caliber players, Olympic gold medalists, just incredible athletes with compelling stories. But where is the consistent, like, mainstream hype around them? Where are the really creative, personalized marketing campaigns that show off their personalities, their lives off the court, their rivalries, the kind of stuff that makes casual fans actually care about them and their teams every single game?
Yeah, the NBA model, right? Building those individual narratives.
Exactly. We've seen other leagues, especially the NBA, do that brilliantly. They craft these narratives around their stars, make them feel accessible, relatable, larger than life. The WNBA needs to really double down on that approach, but for all its compelling athletes, not just rely on the automatic attention Clark brings. Find those fresh voices, build those partnerships that get players noticed outside the usual sports bubble.
It sounds like the big takeaway is pretty clear then. You absolutely need those huge transcendent stars that grab the headlines, capture the public's imagination, act as that powerful magnet to draw people in initially.
For sure. They're the entry point for a lot of new fans.
But you also have to make sure you've got a really strong, solid foundation underneath that star power. You need to invest heavily in your stars, no doubt give them the spotlight, the commercials, the signature shoes eventually, all of it. But and this seems key, you also have to use that incredible momentum, that surge of attention they bring, to lift up the entire league.
Right. A rising tide lifts all boats, ideally.
Yeah. The ultimate goal, and the data seems to scream this, should be to make every game feel like something worth watching, like an event, not just the ones featuring that one single massive name. That's how you build real lasting growth, isn't it? How you turn this current phenomenon into something sustainable for the whole sport.
Precisely. And making every game a must-see event, that's about more than just slick marketing, right? It means ensuring consistent, high-quality play across the board, actively fostering compelling team rivalries, showcasing interesting storylines that develop over the season, and making sure games are easy to find and watch.
Yeah, accessibility is huge.
It's about building that genuine connection, that investment between the casual fan and every team, every key player, every unfolding narrative in the league.
Okay, so wrapping this up. We've looked at the incredible, almost undeniable impact of Caitlin Clark's star power, perfectly shown by that new long-awaited Nike ad. And we've contrasted it with the, well, pretty sobering reality of the WNBA's ratings when she's not on the court. It really paints this complex, kind of nuanced picture for the league's future. It's full of massive opportunity, clearly, but also some really significant hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, the core challenge for the WNBA, and honestly for almost any growing pro sports league in this media landscape, is figuring out how to effectively leverage that singular, undeniable star power, which is a gift, but use it to elevate the entire ecosystem.
Right.
How do they consistently tell great, relatable stories about all their amazing athletes, and by doing that, build up that broad, deep, consistent viewership that really guarantees long-term financial health and cultural relevance?
So that brings us to the big question for you, listening in right now. What do you think is the single most important thing the WNBA could do, starting today, to make sure every game genuinely feels like an event? Not just when Clark is playing. How can they really build on this current momentum and make it stick for the whole league? We would genuinely love to hear your thoughts down in the comments.
And hey, if this deep dive sparked some new ideas for you, or maybe made you think a bit differently about the sports business side of things, think about sharing it with a friend or colleague who might find it interesting too. Because, learning is always better when it's shared.